Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. With the upcoming release of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I feel it's only fitting to cover the lore of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This is going to be in 2 parts, because there's just so much to cover. If you haven't yet, definitely check out my video on the lore of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, as this is meant to accompany it. Without further ado, let's dive in. The worlds of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 result from the same dramatic event. In Africa, humanity discovers a mysterious energy source, a perpetual motion machine they name the Conduit. Upon researching this monolithic device, mankind learns it has the capacity to connect various dimensions. Moving forward from the 21st century, human civilization rapidly progresses with the knowledge gained from the Conduit, entering an age of advanced machines and interstellar technology. With this advancement comes conflict, as different factions of humanity struggle to monopolize the Conduit's power, and as such, its vast energy needs to be protected and maintained. Several orbital space stations are erected to further research the Conduit, with the first low-orbit station, Rhadamanthus, serving to actually house it. Properly maintaining the Conduit requires advanced intelligence beyond human capacity. Thus, the research institution Awidos creates a computer system known as the Trinity Processor. It consists of 3 cores, Ontos, Logos, and Pneuma, AI raised in virtual reality capable of controlling the Conduit. The Trinity Processor manages itself without human input, going so far as to create its own defense system. To protect itself and the Conduit from hostile invasion, the Trinity Processor constructs mechanical soldiers called artifices. These include the Serpentine Artifice Ophion, the Aerial Cannon Sirens, and countless smaller artifices called Gargoyles. The strongest of the artifices, Artifice Ion, is stored in a hangar at Rhadamanthus. It is considered too powerful to use outside of a desperate situation, capable of annihilating the entire Earth in an emergency. Regrettably, such a situation does in fact occur when a group known as the Saviorites attack Rhadamanthus. No matter the advancement, it seems humans in their thirst for warfare never change. Not only have they brought ruin to their own planet Earth, they also threaten the very salvation the Conduit provides. Klaus, a researcher on board Rhadamanthus, has lost hope for humanity, despising its destructive nature. He sees potential in the Conduit to create an entirely new world where mankind can become something grander. Thus, as the Saviorites attack, Klaus takes his opportunity to isolate the Conduit from the rest of the station, locking even the director away from activating Artifice Ion. Despite resistance from his fellow researcher Galea, Klaus activates the Conduit's interdimensional powers, causing portals to appear around the planet. One of these portals swallows Galea, the Trinity Processor's Ontos core, as well as half of Klaus's body, leaving him permanently merged with the interdimensional void. Before vanishing, the other portals swallow nearly all of Earth's human population. The only surviving settlement lives in the nation of Moritha. The very activation Klaus meant to create a new world only brings more disaster to his own. Plagued with guilt, Klaus, or what is left of him, hopes to fix this mess. With the Conduit still accessible, Klaus becomes the architect of this broken world, vowing to restore it to a state of prosperity. The first step of this process is blanketing the Earth in a vast cloud sea. The mistakes of old are buried beneath these clouds, starting anew is the world of Allrest. To repopulate Allrest, Klaus constructs mechanical seeds known as core crystals, small devices containing biological information, and he releases them from the orbital station. Upon making contact with the restorative particles in the cloud sea, these crystals form titans, massive creatures that begin flying and swimming about Allrest. The greatest of these titans form land masses, upon which other new life begins to emerge. Among various organic creatures, a new race of humans evolves from and resides on the backs of titans, alongside other intelligent species such as the rotund Nopon and the Turkins. Klaus, having lost faith in Earth's original humans, plans to observe these fledgling humans vicariously through blades, life forms born directly from core crystals. Blades are powerful, capable of manipulating the elements, but for as strong as they are, they depend on humans to awaken. Humans compatible with core crystals are able to awaken blades, serving as their drivers. By living in tandem with humans, the blades are able to supervise them with the hope of avoiding past disasters. It is a self-sustaining process. Titans produce new core crystals, and as blades reach the end of their life cycles, they in turn become new titans. If not for their dependency on human drivers, blades would be Allrest's ultimate beings. Tragically, however, they possess a significant limitation. Should a blade's driver die, the blade returns to its core crystal until a new driver can awaken them once more. When this is done, however, a reawakened blade loses all of its past memories. A blade can only truly die when its core crystal is destroyed. While this allows blades to live on for hundreds upon thousands of years, they are unable to truly progress as their memories are continually reset. Neither humans nor blades accept these limitations without resistance. The survivors in the nation of Mortha, for instance, experiment with core crystals in an effort to gain the immortality blades possess. By replacing their brain cells with core crystals, they hope to extend their life. In a sense, this works, but only as their minds and bodies corrode into violent monsters. The last of the old humanity ends, leaving behind a ruined city filled with everlasting creatures called Guldos. In contrast, the new humans born to Allrest prosper. Civilizations form on the many great titans. Atop the titan Indol is the Indoline Praetorium, a religious nation that worships the titans and the architect that made them. Gormott is a titan on which the cat-like Gormati people thrive. Standing among the clouds, rather than floating upon them, is the metallic titan Mor Ardain, ruled over by the Empire of Mor Ardain. As for the titan Uriah, the kingdom of Uriah resides not on the titan, but within it. The most aggressive titan is Torna, a violent predator known to kill other titans. The people of Torna use their titan to dominate Allrest for 1,000 years, but eventually this tyranny is tamed by the kingdom of Torna, started by Electos I. A seal is placed on the Tornan titan to pacify its tremendous power. Beyond its destructive nature, this titan is prolific in birthing newborn blades, populating the Cloud Sea with more titans, including the dragon-like Azurda. He is one of the many titans too small to carry the burden of an entire nation. Going forward, Torna becomes a place where drivers and their blades can live in harmony. In Allrest's early years, people revere the architect as a benevolent god who resides in Elysium, a fertile land high above the clouds. The first orbital station remains tethered to the Earth by what is called the Beanstalk, and Allrest's inhabitants name this stalk the World Tree, with Elysium resting at the very top. In truth, Elysium is merely the residential section of Radamanthus, which has been abandoned and devoid of life ever since Klaus activated the conduit. For over 1,000 years, the people of Allrest falsely imagine Elysium as a utopia, one that may or may not even exist. This remains so until one man decides to ascertain the truth for himself. Despite Klaus's hopes for the new life growing on Allrest, war remains a constant. People's cruelty and hatred knows no bounds, and a young child named Amalthus experiences this firsthand. When he and his mother are attacked by a group of thugs, the two of them flee. To protect her son, Amalthus's mother pushes him down a steep hill, allowing herself to be captured so he can escape. All alone, Amalthus navigates the woods, only to discover his mother's corpse at the men's camp. To exact revenge, the young boy murders all the men in their sleep with a rock. Knowing tragedy, Amalthus joins the Indoline Praetorium as a quester, hoping to accommodate refugees like himself. He even awakens his own blade, Menoth, who shares his belief in the architect. Amalthus takes his work seriously, trying to see the hope in human compassion, but this hope is ultimately betrayed. In his time as quester, he heals a wounded soldier, who then goes on to rob the home of an innocent parent and child. After killing the parent, the soldier nearly silences the infant as well, but Amalthus intervenes to instead slay the soldier he foolishly saved. With the surviving baby in his arms, Amalthus doubts his faith, unable to believe that his creator, the architect, wills this sort of disaster. Rather than a blessing, he considers the architect's world a hellscape, much to his own blade's disgust. Minoth is a special blade, an experimental case known as a flesh eater. The theory is that, should a blade consume or otherwise fuse with human cells, they can break free of their dependence on a driver. Should their driver die, a flesh eater can go on without returning to their core crystal, without losing their memories. Minoth, being an early example of this practice, gains his independence at the cost of his immortality. He retains a long lifespan, but his body will grow old and weary over the coming centuries. Unable to tolerate his own driver, Minoth chooses to actively avoid Amalthus during their existential crisis. In order to truly discern the architect's existence and motive, Amalthus climbs the world tree from the outside, amazingly reaching Elysium and seeing it for himself. Sure enough, Elysium proves not to be the utopia he and his faith imagined. Instead of finding the architect, he discovers something far more fascinating. When Klaus invented the core crystals, he also modified the remaining parts of the Trinity processor, Logos and Pneuma, to relay information to blades throughout the Cloud Sea. In other words, he converted the two cores into core crystals of their own. These two cores, and the two respective blades they can awaken, are known as the Aegis. Amalthus finds the Aegis cores and takes them back on his return to the Cloud Sea as proof of his success. By this point, Klaus has once more lost faith in humans, simply letting Amalthus take the cores without confrontation. Back in Indol, Amalthus finds himself resonating with the Logos core, awakening it to form the blade Malos. Imprinting on his driver, Malos inherits Amalthus's hatred for humanity, fostering a wish to destroy all rest. While this desire for destruction is born from Amalthus's thoughts, the Indoline quester appears unwilling to follow through. Defiantly then, Malos abandons his own driver and attempts to terrorize Allrest on his own. Unlike normal blades, the Aegis do not return to their core crystals when their drivers die. Their abilities are on a whole other level, and even if that weren't the case, being part of the Trinity processor gives them access to the artifices used to defend the conduit long ago. In Malos' case, he can command his own siren along with the gargoyles, having them swarm and ravage entire cities with ease. His sword resembles a Monado, the type of weapon emerging from Ontos' world of Xenoblade Chronicles 1. The sword grants him abilities akin to Shulk's Monado Cyclone, Jail, Armor, Eater, and Buster forms. Malos' untamed rampage gives rise to the Aegis War, and his first victim is the Titan Koea. Alongside an Indoline invasion on Koea's capital, Malos slays the Titan, causing it to sink beneath the Cloud Sea. Amalthus realizes he cannot control Malos, and deems himself unfit to try and awaken the other Aegis core. Instead, he searches for a candidate more suitable than himself, one who can be a driver capable of restraining Pneuma's power. This search takes him to the kingdom of Torna, where various Tornan princes try and fail to awaken Pneuma's core. High Prince Zetar, first in line to the Tornan throne, seeks glory in becoming an Aegis driver, only to be damaged and humiliated as the core rejects him. The driver who actually succeeds in awakening Pneuma's core is Adam Origo, fourth in line to the Tornan throne. Born to a different mother than the other princes, Adam is seen as less legitimate by his family. In contrast, he is a hero among the people, earning their support through feats of bravery. Despite being the Lord of Aleta, a smaller region of Torna, his adventures make him popular, much to the disdain of his uncle Zetar, who sees him as a threat. Adam has gained the favor of many helpful allies. He travels alongside Milton, a Gormati child who he saved from a massive flood. Adam has sworn an oath of brotherhood with Hugo, the Emperor of Morardain, and is friends with the Titan Azurda, finding this Titan more familiar than his own royal line. It is perhaps because of this heroic nature that Adam is able to awaken Pneuma's core, resulting in a female blade named Mithra. Recognized for his worthiness, Adam is knighted as Mithra's driver, and the two quickly make preparations to defeat Malos. Adam assembles a private militia in the kingdom of Uriah, but chooses not to lead them in person. This is because Adam fears he cannot control Mithra's tremendous power, and would prefer to keep her away from crowded spaces until the two gain better rapport. Mithra herself has a defiant attitude. She is by no means evil, and truly supports Adam's cause, but she does so beneath a layer of angst. While Malos controls the gargoyles, Mithra is the commander of the artifices Ophion, her own Siren, and the destructive Ion. Of them, she uses Siren to fire down beams of light from above, devastating her enemies in a dazzling rain of destruction. Her sword radiates light itself, and as her driver, Adam also wields her glorious might. This includes foresight akin to Shulk's Monado, as well as speed of light movement. Adam's journey with Mithra has them following the destruction of Malos' gargoyles. In the Lysaria region of Torna, near the ruins of Porton Village, he encounters an especially peculiar blade and driver, Jin and Laura. 17 years prior, Laura was but a 10-year-old girl when she found herself in the company of a thief named Gort. Gort and her mother Renea had a questionable relationship. Renea was a maid and had a live-in arrangement with Gort. Times were tough for the household, but after 3 years of planning, Gort had finally succeeded in stealing the core crystal of Jin, a powerful blade cherished as the paragon of Torna. Before Gort could sell the core crystal, Laura accidentally resonated with it, awakening Jin. Desperate to turn Jin back into a core crystal, Gort drew a knife and attempted to kill Laura, ignoring her mother's pleas. In retaliation, Jin stepped in and saved Laura, cleaving off Gort's right arm in the process. Jin vowed to protect Laura as his new driver, but Laura knew he was a stolen blade, and by remaining together, they'd be fugitives. The two of them went on the run, and for nearly 2 decades, they traveled together as mercenaries. Jin disguised his face and core crystal under a mask Laura made for him, and because they could not afford a second sword, they learned to fight in a style that shared Jin's katana. Between his sword, speed, and affinity for ice spells, Jin and Laura were an unstoppable duo, and to add to their forces, Laura also resonated with a second core crystal, recruiting a female blade named Haze. As her name implied, Haze could conjure wind spells in addition to healing. Most unique is her ability to suppress the powers of other blades and titans. Despite this, Laura did not depend on Haze's help for combat. Rather, Laura hoped to reunite with her mother, but needed to dedicate herself full-time as a mercenary to make ends meet. As such, Haze was often sent to search for Laura's mother on her behalf. Thus, Haze is not around when Laura and Jin encounter Porton Village. Only one person survived the destruction of the village, a young boy named Mikhail, who had already met misfortune when he was sold to the village from the Titan Estham. Laura takes the boy in, as he reminds her of herself when she was a child. The gargoyle responsible for torching the village returns. Laura and Jin struggle to take it down, but fortunately they are aided by a surprise encounter. Adam and Mithra strike down the gargoyle, and quickly notice that Jin is a stolen blade. The two parties get off on the wrong foot, initially fighting one another. After witnessing how Laura and Jin fight sharing a sword, however, Adam is so impressed that they instead talk things over and form a team. While Laura and Adam discuss their duel, Haze arrives with news, accompanied by Adam's follower Milton. Here, Haze informs Laura that her mother was last sighted at the Gormati town of Torrigoth. Adam's search for Malos has no leads at the moment, so his group agrees to accompany Laura on the quest to find her mother. Tragically, they reach Torrigoth, only to find it has been razed by a group of Coetian soldiers who had fled their Titan following Malos' attack. After checking the town's cemetery, Laura is sad to find one grave adorned with the charm she made for her mom as a child. Before she can properly mourn her mother's death, the group is attacked by soldiers from Mor Ardain, who suspect them of being Coetian rebels. Their fight is resolved when Hugo, the current emperor of Mor Ardain, steps in and recognizes his friend Adam. He is accompanied by 2 royal blades of his own, the 2 jewels of the Empire, Brigid and Aegeon. Brigid's deadly flame attacks make her the Empire's strongest blade. Aegeon, too, is passed down from generation to generation within Mor Ardain's royal line. Both of them, in order to retain some grasp of their previous incarnations, each keep diaries chronicling their lives. While it is a far cry from memory retention, both of them like learning of their legacies. In the event that Hugo dies in battle, he is accompanied by an escort tasked solely with retrieving his blade's core crystals. Hugo, also being on the hunt for Malos, wishes to join forces with Adam, so everyone heads to his battleship to discuss their plans moving forward. Everyone, that is, except for Laura and Hayes, who stay behind and decorate Torgoth's graves. Gort, after losing his arm to Jin 17 years ago, has spent that time as a shady core broker for Amalthus. He now possesses a blue prosthetic arm, earning him the codename Bluefist. His work for Amalthus leads him to discover Laura and Jin after all this time, and he of course plans to take revenge. Aware of Hayes' ability to suppress blades, he takes with him a group of human mercenaries to attack the Torgoth cemetery. Ambushed, Laura and Hayes are forced to repel Gort's attack until Jin and the others catch up. Jin, who normally dislikes violence, has no trouble slicing off both of Gort's arms to protect his driver. Jin prepares to slay Gort once and for all, but Laura begs to spare the filthy crook. For all of Gort's faults and abuse, he did once employ her mother after all. She shows mercy, allowing Gort to flee. Taking her mercy for granted, all Gort can think of is how to finally best her and Jin. In a rather pathetic state, he passes out and is recovered by a group of Indol warrior monks led by Stanif, a Praetorium researcher. Indol's forebearers, the Judicians of Temperantia, had already been experimenting with flesh-eaters like Minoth, and the Praetorium is also hoping to create what they call Blade Eaters. From scraps salvaged from the land of Moritha, where humans once tried merging with core crystals, Stanif has learned how to perfect this process. All he needs are test subjects to fine-tune the details. With Amalthus' approval, Stanif infuses Gort's body with blade parts. Being such an early experiment, however, Gort does not become a proper blade eater with the immortality of a blade. Instead, he is transformed into a horrific monstrosity of man and machine, a twisted weapon serving as an expendable step in improving Blade Eater technology. Hoping to bring about a more peaceful future, Laura joins Adam and Hugo in their fight against Malos. With information that Malos may target the Tornan capital of Oresco, they resume their travels. Along the way, they encounter Amalthus' blade Minoth, who agrees to aid Adam by following his commands as if he were his driver. En route to Oresco, the party stops in Hyber Village, where they discover that, prior to Laura, Jin was a driver for a woman named Ornelia. Ornelia fought in a war for independence as part of the Colony Defense Force. A photo they once took together shows how happy she and Jin were as a team, and to commemorate the occasion, Laura and all Jin's newfound allies take a similar photo. Privately, Jin comes upon an old journal he'd wrote while Ornelia was still alive. The journal serves to relay a message between Jin's past and current selves, describing a way for him to overcome his memory loss by merging with his driver's own flesh. The previous Jin had his own concerns about the architect, inquiring about his true purpose. Jin takes these words into consideration, keeping them to himself. Adam and his companions arrive in Oresco, offering to protect Torna with Adam's own army, along with support from Mor Ardain. Adam's father, the Tornan king, is grateful for this aid, but High Prince Zetar is reluctant to admit his own powerlessness. As feared, Malos indeed arrives in Oresco, assaulting the city in person, along with a swarm of gargoyles. Adam's militia helps protect the city's people, while Mithra goes toe-to-toe with her Aegis counterpart. Even with the full party's combined efforts, Malos proves to be too much. Ultimately, Malos succeeds in assaulting Oresco and stealing the seal holding the Tornan Titan at bay. His plan is to expedite his reign of terror by unleashing the full might of Torna onto the other Titans. Before he awakens Torna, though, he decides to give Mithra one final chance to defeat him, asking the party to meet him at the Titan's core. With a moment of respite, Torna's king chides High Prince Zetar for his arrogance and incompetence, while at the same time recognizing Laura's bravery. She, an otherwise unrelated mercenary, has put her life on the line to protect the kingdom. The following day, before confronting Malos once more, the king appoints Laura as an official knight of the kingdom. The Titan Azurda arrives to help Adam, even recalling how he used to give Jin and Ornelia rides on his back across the Cloud Sea. Azurda transports the party to their final battle with Malos. At the Titan's core, they release their full might against one another. Mithra summons her artifice Ophion to take out hundreds of Malos' gargoyles, but their sheer quantity wins out. Ophion, heavily damaged, sinks beneath the Cloud Sea. While fighting, Malos justifies his rampage by declaring it a natural extension of humanity's lust for death and destruction. While pairs like Laura and Jin prove that humans and blades can lovingly understand each other, Malos deems them outliers to the norm. People like Laura will ultimately lose to the humans who succumb to corruption. Not satisfied with the flow of battle, Malos hopes to bring out Mithra's true potential by calling upon his siren. It fires upon the capital, killing many people, including Adam's child companion Milton. Mithra, otherwise dishonest with her sentimentality, breaks down in the face of this tragedy. While screaming in agony, she awakens the full might of her core, Numa, which proves to be too much for Adam to control as her driver. She ignores him and takes her own sword, fighting Malos in a near berserk state. Their swords clash, and the battle evolves when Mithra calls her own siren. The two pilot their respective mechanical soldiers, much to Malos' delight. He believes their feud will help bring about the world's destruction. Mithra, however, fondly remembers her time as Adam's blade. She wants to protect the people she's met, and even glimpses visions of the future. To defeat Malos, she unleashes a devastating attack far beyond her control. Malos is shocked to witness such power, unable to resist as the blast destroys his siren and sends him plummeting to the cloud sea below. While achieving victory, Mithra's attack causes tremendous collateral damage. The Tornan Titan is fatally wounded, and its core explodes. Adam is nearly killed in the blast, but Hugo sacrifices himself to shield it. Unable to contain Mithra's strength, Adam laments the death of his friend. Beyond the core itself, Oresco burns, and Torna's king falls along with his city. The only survivors are those who flee to Morardane's warship. This includes Laura, Jin, Hayes, Adam, Minoth, and Mithra. Hugo's core crystals are retrieved by the Empire to be used again. Even the High Prince Setar flees his own kingdom as it sinks into the clouds below. Mithra finds Mikhail on the warship, cradling Milton's corpse. When she comes closer, Mikhail pulls away, presumably blaming her for all the destruction. Traumatized, Mithra cries out, choosing to restrain her tremendous power by masking it behind a separate personality, a transformation called Pyra, made to face the world in her stead. In the aftermath, Laura's team parts with Adam after receiving an order to rendezvous with refugees at Specia. He cannot attend to it himself, as he instead ventures to the Leftharian archipelago, a chain of islands home to a shrine called the Spirit Crucible Elpis. He establishes the shrine to seal away Mithra's sword, designing the crucible so that only someone worthy of her true power can reach it. The sword itself no longer has any power, but by pursuing it, promising drivers for Pyra can be tested to Adam's satisfaction. Nearby, he becomes the founder of Fonset Village and asks Azurda to guard it. He hopes that, one day, a child of the Leftharian archipelago will grow up to be capable of handling Pyra as a blade. While there is hope, he anticipates such a candidate won't emerge for many years. To keep anyone nefarious from resonating with Pyra in the meantime, he has her sealed away in a Tornan ship, and lets that ship sink beneath the Cloud Sea. Following Adam's orders, Laura travels to Specia, where she is once again attacked by Gort. Her group witnesses the horror of a failed Blade Eater, and to protect themselves, they fight back and slay Gort once and for all. What they don't realize is that a much greater threat is upon them. Amalthus, having witnessed the events of the Aegis War, deems the entire world a mistake. His yearning for destruction takes a different form than Malos's, instead focusing on political manipulation over a long span of time. He secures his place as Praetor of Indal by poisoning the current Praetor Radalis, and having a flesh-eater blade assassinate his rival, the Magister Baltric. In a new seat of authority, Amalthus hopes to eliminate his only remaining threat, Mithra. She was only meant to oppose Malos, and with Malos presumably defeated, Amalthus no longer has a need for her. Unaware of Adam's actions, Amalthus foolishly assumes Mithra will be with the refugees at Specia, and so he launches an assault on the rescue site. Laura and Jin are caught in the crossfire. The two flee from artillery as innocent refugees die all around them. They aren't fast enough to escape, so Laura jumps in the way of a blast aimed at Jin. On the verge of death, She cherishes her bond with Jin more than anything, and laments the fact that he'll soon forget all about her. Jin, in turn, is terrified of losing his driver. He wants to protect her, and it's all the more painful to consider losing his memories of her. It is here that he recalls what his previous form wrote in the journal. By consuming one's own driver, a blade can live on as a flesh eater. Deciding to resist fate, Jin eats Laura's heart and has her body frozen as a reminder of his decision. He returns to the cabin where he found the journal and sets it ablaze, erasing his past records and memorabilia. Despite no longer needing to hide himself, however, Jin continues to wear the mask Laura made, conveniently hiding his core crystal, which has now been stained crimson due to his status as a flesh eater. Because Laura was unable to protect the refugees, they are kidnapped by the Indoline Praetorium and used in further experiments to create Blade Eaters. Through them, the process is mastered, allowing humans to greatly extend their lifespans by fusing with blades. A major success is seen in Mikhail, who is captured at Specia. Amalthus eventually orders for these test subjects to be slaughtered as a means of keeping their experiments secret. Mikhail is the only survivor, rescued from captivity by Jin. This secret Blade Eater research allows Amalthus himself to become a Blade Eater. Upon discovering Hayes' core crystal in the aftermath of Laura's death, Amalthus consumes part of her core to secure an everlasting life. Despite being responsible for Laura's death, he greedily awakens Hayes and takes advantage of her lost memories to make her Fan Lenorn, the goddess of the Praetorium. This lends him the people's approval as the proper ruler of Indol. What they don't realize is that, while the Praetorium preaches worshipping the architect, Amalthus has personally forsaken such piety, instead manipulating the entire world to his own will. Under these circumstances, the land of Allrest seems destined for peril. It won't be for another 500 years that hope is found in a young salvager, a boy who humbly makes a living by recovering lost treasures from the Cloud Sea. Before I go ahead and roll the credits, I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, C. James Torley, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, Otaku Mom, Jens Ballman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Freebrick, Cosmonaut, RNG or Shuffles 1498, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Johnny Tsunami, Link Pendrago, Caitlin P., Vladimir Rovna, Succubus Sakura, and SF Giants fan Mike. Thank you all so much. Thanks for watching!
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of our anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or our YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like exclusive vids and early access.
As always,
celebrate your fandom!